What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be giving you my full card predictions and betting breakdown for UFC 299. Last week I went 9-2. This week I'm sweeping the entire damn card. Maybe not though, because there's a lot of hard matchups to predict, a lot of competitive fights, which makes this card so much damn fun. Really looking forward to it. With that being said, let's get into the first fight of the night, which is Maryna Moroz versus Joanne Wood. In this matchup, I'm taking Maryna Moroz. Really low confidence. On this card, there's a lot of picks I'm going to make, and I'm going to tell you with very low confidence, but I'll kind of offer up a side bet, maybe a sprinkle prop that you should look at. And in this matchup, I think the value would be to sprinkle prop the side of Joanne Wood by decision. I think if there is an outcome that is most likely to occur in this fight, it's going to be Joanne Wood by decision, but I am picking Maryna Moroz because I like her finishing potential. She won the first fight by submission. She is pretty wild early when it comes to her submission game. She will find takedowns. She'll put you in bad positions, potentially finding submissions. When it comes to her cardio, I'm not super confident on the Moroz side. I think Joanne Wood will have more success as it is going later. But Joanne Wood is like 38 years old. This is her retirement fight. You saw it on Embedded. She said this was 100% her retirement fight today. But she's very good within the clinch. In her most recent performance against Luana Carolina, she actually went out there, beat Luana Carolina pretty convincingly. It actually might have been a split decision, but I thought she won it pretty clearly. Within the clinch, she's got good knees. At range, she's not a bad striker. I think Maryna Moroz is a pretty good striker as well. She's got good takedowns, pretty decent takedowns. I think she can find takedowns, and I think that will win her the rounds. I think she wins the first 2 rounds, but I could also see a submission for her as she does have a good submission game. And Joanne Wood has been submitted multiple times throughout her career. Now, granted, that's by high-level fighters like Alexa Grasso, the current champion, Taila Santos, the list goes on, but it's a lot of great fighters. Jessica Andrade comes to mind. She's fought the who's who, and she's lost to the who's who, but when it comes to fighters that are pretty low level in women's MMA, she beats them. But I do think Maryna Moroz is that type of fighter that can beat them as well. She's coming off a loss to Karine Silva, but Karine Silva is actually on a tear right now. A lot of consecutive wins, winning a lot of them by submission. And sure, submitting Maryna Moroz is a little bit concerning considering Maryna Moroz is the grappler in this matchup, and she will be the girl looking to submit Joanne Wood. But I do think that Karine Silva is really good. And it's just women's MMA. When it comes to low-level fights, I'm going to be picking the grappler, even though I can't trust her cardio. Extremely low confidence, and that's why I would say just sprinkle on the side by Joanne Wood by decision. Like I said, if there's an exact method with a certain fighter winning, I think the prop to play is Joanne Wood by decision. But we'll see how it goes. Maryna Moroz is the pick. I'll say 29-28 based off of the first 2 rounds. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is CJ Vergara versus Asu Almabaev. I'm picking Asu Almabaev, but I think the -500, -400 tag is a little bit too wide because CJ Vergara is tough and he does have a style on the feet that can take advantage of Asu Almabaev on the feet, because Asu Almabaev on the feet, he circles around. He's got a lot of lateral movement, which is fair, but he's kind of, I don't want to say low volume, but just trading in the pocket, he gets hit. He's not the cleanest, most technical striker, and sure, he can rip a couple of low kicks, but he's not that good. I'm telling you, on the feet, I don't trust him. But when it comes to his takedowns, he's got good takedown entries. He's very strong. He's very good at controlling opponents. He's got a good submission game, but I do think CJ Vergara will make it to a decision. So I'm going to pick Asu Almabaev by decision. I'll say a 30-27. 1 round's close. Maybe one judge gives it 29-28. CJ Vergara did miss weight this morning, and that's not a great sign on the side of Asu because a lot of the guys that miss weight, they'll be stronger within grappling exchanges, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, CJ Vergara, I mean, he has decent striking. I bet on him against Vinicius Salvador, and I was pretty confident on that line, and he made it really close with Vinicius. And Vinicius, in my opinion, is not a good striker, not very technical. Sure, he's wild, but if you survive a round, you should be beating Vinicius, and CJ Vergara made it look way too close for my liking. So that was kind of one of those scenarios where I don't know how I feel about CJ Vergara, but even then, I think CJ Vergara loves the pressure forward. Asu Almabaev does fight off the back foot, and I just don't love his counters. I don't love his ability off the back foot when he's trading against a guy that is gamed. CJ Vergara is gamed, but he doesn't have the greatest power, so I'm not trusting him here. I do think it gets taken down. Tatsuro Taira took him down, but against Tatsuro Taira, in my opinion, he showed some very good submission defense. He actually swept Tatsuro Taira at a point, so I think he can make this to decision. We have seen some fighters go to decision against Asu Almabaev. Almabaev's striking is not that bad. I just think in this matchup, in a pure striking fight, CJ Vergara should be the better striker, but maybe the takedown threat makes Asu Almabaev have a lot more success on the feet. But Asu is hittable. He does get wild at times, which is not something that I love, but I don't think CJ Vergara has the precision and the power to get this one done. So we're going to do Asu Almabaev by a 30-27, one scorecard, 29-28. Pretty clear decision. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Robelis Despaigne versus Josh Parisian. In this matchup, I'm going to be taking Robelis Despaigne. This is my most confident pick on the entire card. I got him at -287. I got some money on him at -300. I think that's pretty decent value because that indicates he has got a 75% chance to win this fight. And to be honest with you, I think he's got like an 85% chance to win this fight. And that might sound crazy, because he's a he's a Taekwondo bronze medalist in the Olympics, which is clearly a very high degree, but everyone's saying that doesn't mean he has good takedown defense. I'm just saying this guy's power, his reach is going to be so hard for anyone to close the distance against. Since he's reached such a high level in striking, I think that's enough for me to want to pick him because of his athleticism when compared to Josh Parisian, who's hittable, doesn't have the greatest chin, doesn't have great power, takedown entries aren't that good. Sure, he's fairly nimble for a bottom feeder heavyweight, but bottom feeder heavyweights are complete ass. I have something called the shit method when predicting heavyweight fights, and it's that just because someone is running through all the bottom feeder heavyweights does not mean they're good, and we'll see how that applies to Almeida versus Blaydes later in this video when it comes down to it. I just don't think that Robelis Despaigne is going to be struggling with any of these guys outside of the rankings. They're not athletic, they're fat, they're slow. Robelis Despaigne actually has quick hands, insane power. His last 3 fights like combined up to like 20 seconds, something like that, because he's knocking everybody out that early. And if you go and actually look into his regional opponents, they are winning fights in the regional scene. These aren't guys that are like 2-2, 2-3. On the amateurs, they're winning a lot of their fights. I think his most 2 recent opponents, I think they were, but they've actually been winning fights on the regional scene, and they just have no ability to close the distance on him. He's much quicker, he's much more nimble, he's extremely powerful, reach advantage as well. Josh Parisian's going to get hit on the way in. I just don't see Josh Parisian being quick enough to close the distance without taking a shot, and if he takes one shot, it could be over. I think Robelis Despaigne gets this done, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't get it done within the first minute to 2 minutes. Josh Parisian gets hit. I don't love his footwork. Josh Parisian actually weighs more than I thought. He weighs 266, but he doesn't distribute his weight well. He's clearly fat. If you just do the eye test, Robelis Despaigne should win this. And another piece of evidence that I'm going to bring up as to why you should trust a guy that's just big, tall, and athletic, and strong, and quick is Ciryl Gane looked like a good grappler on the come-up. A lot of people were saying, well, I mean, he's the better grappler than Ngannou in that fight. Not everyone was saying that, but people were saying Ciryl Gane looks like he has solid wrestling. He's shooting in on takedowns, submitting guys. He's a great grappler. Not the case. Maybe not a great grappler, but you understand what I'm saying. Is a lot of people were fairly high on Ciryl Gane's grappling, clearly a little bit too high, and now that he's fought some of the guys at the top, everyone is viewing Ciryl Gane as that one striker that cannot grapple whatsoever. And then you watch Sergey Spivak go out there and submit Derek Lewis in the first round, but Ciryl Gane, without proper technical technique, that makes no sense, but without proper technique when it came to stuffing the takedowns against Sergey Spivak, stuffed the takedowns just based off of pure athleticism. That's a top 10 guy in Sergey Spivak who's submitting Derek Lewis. And I'll talk about how that ties into the Almeida, the Blaydes fight later on in this video. When it comes down to it, I trust the athleticism of Robelis Despaigne. He's like minus 175 for a round 1 KO. I don't even mind playing that, to be quite honest with you. He's going to find a first round finish. And I just think there's such a big athletic discrepancy here that it doesn't matter about Robelis Despaigne's takedown defense. And even when someone did shoot in on a takedown, he was moving his hits back, maybe not perfectly, but he was landing shots on the way in. His opponent was already rocked. I just think it's so hard to close the distance. I feel like I've said this a million times. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Michel Pereira versus Michel Oleksiejczek. Obviously, Michel Pereira is a very wild guy, and he hasn't shown the greatest cardio throughout his career, so a lot of people are on the Michel Oleksiejczek side, but I feel like a lot of people that are on the Michel Oleksiejczek side are super impressed with his performance over Chidi Njokuani, where I'm not a guy that's super high on Chidi Njokuani if you're able to survive him. Michel Oleksiejczek has a very good chin, and Chidi hurt Michel Oleksiejczek early, sure, but Michel's chin survived, and then he ended up finding big shots and TKOing Chidi Njokuani in the first round. Now, something I want to talk about in that fight is Chidi Njokuani almost looked like he was gassed. He was tiring out in the first round. He was slowing down after he landed a good combination on Michel. Didn't hurt Michel, didn't put Michel out, and then Michel got in his face and landed some big shots. I'm not saying Michel is not durable. I'm just saying Chidi Njokuani isn't the best when it comes to dealing with adversity. I was really high on Chidi Njokuani when he debuted in the UFC. I had a lot of money on him against Marc-Andre Barriault. In hindsight, if they rematch, I might even go with Marc-Andre Barriault. In fact, I probably would. But when it came to his UFC debut, I was pretty high on Chidi Njokuani for no reason. Some reason, I guess, but I put some money on Chidi Njokuani. I've been very good at predicting him throughout his career outside of his loss to Gregory Rodriguez. In hindsight, when adversity hits this guy, he doesn't do too well with it, and Michel Oleksiejczek is a guy that will bring you adversity. Michel Pereira has been through adversity, and not only that, I think he has a style that's going to make it very hard for Michel Oleksiejczek to bring him the adversity that Michel Oleksiejczek brings to people on the feet. Michel Oleksiejczek will kind of stalk you down. He's very good within the clinch with his knees. He rips to the body very well, but he kind of stalks you down in a linear forward motion, whereas Michel Pereira is circling around the octagon, landing low kicks. He's got a great teep to the body. What was Chidi Njokuani lighting up Michel Oleksiejczek with early? Maybe not lighting up, but he was landing that teep to the body nonstop. It was landing easily. Michel Oleksiejczek is very open to the body. Within the clinch, Michel Pereira has very, very solid knees. I do worry. This is in front of a crowd, and although people are saying Michel Pereira has been a lot more technical recently, he's been fighting at the apex, so maybe when he's in front of the crowd, he goes full autism mode and just tries to lose the fight again. But I'm not going to bet on his cardio being bad this time because he is moving up a weight class, and he was already cutting down 45 pounds to the welterweight division and pushing a high pace there for the first 2 rounds. I think he'll win the first 2 rounds. I think round 3 will go to Michel Oleksiejczek, but I could see both guys finding a finish. Michel Pereira did come off a knockout in the first round. He actually won it. I made that seem like he lost it. He actually just knocked out Andre Petroski in the first round, but Andre Petroski, to me, doesn't have good striking defense. I picked Michel Pereira there. I picked him by round 2 KO. He got it done in round 1. Damn near the first clean shot he landed just put Petroski on his ass. I just think that Petroski's chin isn't that good, and he's so hittable the way he kind of puts his chin up in the air. Michel Pereira was a precise enough striker to get that done. But ultimately, I think that Michel Oleksiejczek is very good at pressuring fighters that will stand in front of him, but not so good at fighters that will move around the perimeter of the octagon, tie up in the clinch with them, land some knees. I can't stress this enough. I do believe that Michel Pereira's bread and butter in this fight will be his teep to the body that he was working nonstop against Santiago Ponzinibbio. He was working it against another fighter as well that my brain just does not want to think of right now. But he's got a good teep. He's got a very good knee within the clinch, extremely powerful, and he's big. He's probably the bigger, more muscular guy in this matchup. And another thing to mention that not a lot of people know is if you go on Michel Oleksiejczek's Instagram, I think he trains at his own gym or he's his own coach. I just know that he doesn't have a coach anymore, which is already a red flag considering Michel Oleksiejczek hasn't reached championship levels, right? And he's been losing to Mikal Bahayo, who's a guy that was taking him down. Michel Pereira is the better grappler here. He's shown good takedown defense, shown some good grappling offensively. And Michel Oleksiejczek is able to getting taken down. That made no sense. But anyways, when he's training himself, and I'm also seeing on Twitter with him saying, he's like, I don't need sparring partners, I'm sparring with my friends. That tells me that maybe he's not taking the necessary steps to properly prepare for this fight. Although he's good, and I love Michel, I picked him against Chidi. That's something I did want to mention for the fact that I didn't believe in Chidi. After that Gregory Rodriguez fight, I thought that Michel would be able to survive and he'd bring adversity to Chidi. And Chidi and Jaquani, his chin isn't the greatest, and his cardio isn't the greatest either. And Michel Oleksiejczek does have some pretty solid cardio. As the fight goes later, I think it favors Michel, but if Michel Pereira has better cardio because he is now cutting much less weight, don't be surprised. He's big, he's massive for the division, probably even the bigger guy here, if not very similar in size. But he's dense, he's actually got very underrated head movement. I think Michel is just so linear at times. I don't know if he's going to have a good time stalking down his opponent, Michel Pereira, who has just nonstop movement, left to right, teep, the knees, and then he's also good with his jab too. I'm kind of downplaying his hands, but he's got good hands too. But Michel, tucks his chin very well, high guard, but that does leave him very open to the body. This is a very fun, interesting fight. I think Michel is a good underdog, but I am picking Michel Pereira for the reasons that I have stated. Not super confidently, but I mean, at minus 140, I wouldn't play the line, but I think it's somewhere fair to be around there. I don't mind a Michel Oleksiejczek play, but we'll see. I'll leave it there. Michel Pereira, 29-28 based off the first 2 rounds. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Ion Cutelaba versus Felipe Lins. This fight it's interesting. This is one of those matches where I want to go with Felipe Lins. Felipe Lins is a slight underdog, and I feel like I'm seeing everybody in the world picking Ion Cutelaba. I've yet to see one person pick Felipe Lins, which makes me very nervous about picking Ion Cutelaba. But I'm picking Ion Cutelaba because he's got fairly quick hands. He's got good power. He's had great moments against really solid fighters. Now he fumbles them almost every single time because when he has a fighter hurt, he shoots in on a takedown, and then he finds a takedown, and then they survive, and then his cardio isn't that good. But we've seen him have some success in the later rounds against Devin Clark. Felipe Lins is a guy that beat Marcin Prachnio, who recently just beat Devin Clark very convincingly. But I don't know, Felipe Lins doesn't have the greatest cardio either. As it goes later, I think that Felipe Lins probably does have the advantage because he goes for the lower energy movements. Although they are both gassing out, Ion Cutelaba will be shooting in on takedowns, and if he doesn't get them, he's going to be tired, and I think Felipe Lins will clinch up and hold him there. So this could turn into a very boring fight outside of the first round, but in that first round, it's going to be very fun to watch. Ion Cutelaba is probably going to go out there blazing him and blitzing him with some wide hooks. He throws hooks a little bit too wide for my liking, but he is more physically imposing. He's in better shape. I looked on his Instagram. There's a photo of him where it looks like he is more jacked than he's ever been. He's probably on steroids, especially for this camp. It just looks like it. Felipe Lins used to be heavyweight. He pulled out of the last fight. He's pulled out of so many fights. So that actually kind of does worry me, considering the fact that Felipe Lins pulls out of so many fights, it's almost like every single time this guy does fight, everything probably went correct in his camp. But maybe that's not the case. Felipe Lins, I haven't even talked about him yet outside of the clinch. He's got underratedly very quick hands for a light heavyweight that's been at the heavyweight division. It's probably on par with Ian Cutelaba. They probably got very similar hand speed. He's got the reach advantage, but he throws pretty wild hooks. He doesn't set anything up. Neither does Ian Cutelaba. But Cutelaba's chin isn't the worst thing in the world. He's getting hurt by very solid precision strikers with a lot of power. Whereas Felipe Lins hasn't really been hurt by anyone recently. Actually, he did get hurt a couple of times by Prachnio. I watched a Grishin fight. That was a boring fight with a lot of clinching. Grishin sucks. I'm just going to go with the younger guy who's been fighting the better levels of competition, who knocked out Tanner Boser, and Tanner Boser beat Felipe Lins. I don't know. I just feel like Felipe Lins' takedown defense has looked good, but it's looking good against Grishin, against Prachnio. Who else has he fought? He knocked out Oven St. Preux in the first round, but I'm just saying that Felipe Lins' wins aren't very impressive. I'm going to trust Ian Cutelaba, who, although doesn't have the most impressive wins, has impressive moments in his losses against very solid fighters and is the more physically dominant guy. Wow. I mean, I feel like he's going to hurt Felipe Lins, have him out on his feet, pull guard, and then get submitted somehow. Felipe has the better BJJ, but he's probably not going to be able to take that fight down to the ground. And if Ian is on top in full mount, he is going to probably TKO Felipe Lins. So round 1 KO, Ian Cutelaba. Low confidence because of the IQ from Ian Cutelaba. This feels like I should be picking Felipe Lins for the simple fact of, for the amount of people picking Ian Cutelaba, he's only minus 120, minus 130. He should be a little bit more wide of a favorite. And I feel like he was a wider favorite the first time around. And now Felipe pulls out, and now that he's back into this fight, it's closer odds than it was before. So that does make me nervous. But I also kind of do think that anyone picking Ian Cutelaba is also telling you that you can't trust this guy no matter what. So maybe that's part of it as well. But Ian Cutelaba is the pick. Extremely low confidence. This is kind of a low-level fight, but Ian Cutelaba has shown high-level tools, I guess. High-level threats. We'll move on to the next fight of the card, which is Pedro Munhoz versus Kyler Phillips. Another one of those fights, man, where I'm going to tell you this is a hard one to predict. I actually don't know who I'm going to predict right now. I'm going to go through, and we are going to factor everything out. I've watched so many fights on Pedro Munhoz to try and get a good read on this fight, and I don't fucking know. Pedro Munhoz has had success against Sean O'Malley. He's had success against Marlon Vera. Had success against Chris Gutierrez. Had success recently against Dominic Cruz in round 1, but even then, Cruz is mainly outpointing him for the most of that fight. Kyler Phillips, on the other hand, he's super inconsistent. He'll have great performances against Marcelo Rojo, where he's just getting in, he's getting out, footwork's doing good, he's landing takedowns, submits him in the 3rd round. But then against Raulian Paiva, he almost drops him in the 1st round, probably blows a little bit too much of his cardio, and then in rounds 2, he's getting hurt. And then in round 3, he's not having success. That fight went to a draw, I do believe. I'd have to double check that, but Raulian Paiva should not be able to do that to you. But then he also has a good performance against Song Yadong. So it's just like, does his style just specifically work on certain guys, or is it just him screwing it up? I think it is him screwing it up against Raoni Barcelos. People were saying he was gassing, he was slowing down. I think they're overstating it too much. I felt like he was picking his shots a little bit more in round 2, finding at a little bit more of a more comfortable pace for him, but he doesn't have the greatest cardio, and that's why I'm extremely nervous in this matchup. But his footwork is good. He's in, he's out. He's got good body kicks, he's got good low kicks. He's a little bit too flashy at times, but I think that can have success here. He's got the reach advantage. Pedro is short, but he's used to being short, and he's used to fighting short. So that's what's so scary to me, is that Pedro's going out there, and he's having a very close 1st round. 2 judges gave the first round to him against Sean O'Malley. Against Chris Gutierrez, I mean, he clips Chris Gutierrez with big shots. Chris Gutierrez is a guy with good low kicks. He's a guy with very good teeps to the body, and he had a lot of success against Song Yadong. Pedro Munhoz, he's got good power. He's got a really, really good submission game. High-level BJJ black belt, very good guillotine. Kyler Phillips does like to mix it up with the wrestling, so maybe Kyler Phillips gets caught shooting in and he gets caught with the guillotine. Maybe Kyler gets caught with a big shot, but I do think that his head movement is good enough. I think that he's preparing for Pedro Munhoz. He trains at MMA Lab, which is a camp that really provides pretty solid game plans from my understanding. They had Mario Batista there, who really debunked Ricky Simon very recently. That really impressed me out of their camp. Sean O'Malley trains at MMA Lab from time to time as well. Sean O'Malley's got very good game plans. You've seen it against Petr Yan. You've seen it against Aljamain Sterling. I guarantee you he has a good plan going into this Marlon Vera performance. I'll get to that later. But Pedro Munhoz would be the pick if I could trust him to shoot takedowns. I think that Pedro Munhoz could randomly be that guy that would have more success at the bantamweight division if he's mixing in the takedowns, because him with the level change is a dangerous guy. He doesn't level change all that much. He's a short guy, compact. He's got a good wrestling base when it comes to his frame, But Kyler Phillips has good takedown defense. I just think a takedown threat could be what slows down Kyler Phillips. And I'm watching Kyler Phillips slow down. And every single time I feel like he's maybe gassing out, but not gassing out. More like slowing down in the later rounds. It's when there's grappling exchanges and Pedro doesn't shoot in on takedowns. Now, Pedro has a very good low kick game. And if he's able to hinder the lateral movement from side to side around the octagon from Kyler Phillips with low kicks, Pedro's going to win this fight. If Pedro wins one of the first 2 rounds, he's going to win this fight. I'm kind of thinking that Kyler Phillips just gets it done for the first 2 rounds. And the reason why I am thinking that is because I feel like Pedro Munhoz is the public underdog of the week. And the reason why I say that is I see a lot of people. You see on Tapology, it's almost split. I think Pedro Munhoz is getting picked 45% of the time. I understand the pick. But when I see that, and I see a lot of people betting Pedro Munhoz on Twitter, no one's betting Kyler Phillips, and Kyler Phillips is still sitting there at a minus 200 favorite, it makes me nervous. I have Mac action on Pedro Munhoz. I think he is great value. I don't know who I'm fucking picking here. Who am I going to pick here? I will say this. If you're playing something on this fight, this is my favorite bet on the fight. This is one of my more favorite bets on the entire card. Pedro Munhoz inside the distance, decision, no action, is a really good bet. If it goes to the distance, you get your money back. If Pedro finishes this fight, you win. However much it is. I think it's minus 115, so you'll probably win whatever you bet on that. Almost evens, right? So that's a very good bet in my opinion. If anyone's finding the finish, it's Pedro Munhoz. Pedro Munhoz has good power. He's got a really good submission game. Maybe Kyler Phillips gets caught in on a submission while he's shooting in on a bad takedown. Maybe he gets hurt and then get caught in a submission. Maybe he gets hurt and then knocked out in the later rounds. I don't trust Kyler Phillips' cardio, but I do think he's so good at getting in and out. I think he is the better striker, presents a problem on the feet for Pedro Munhoz, but Pedro Munhoz has dealt with the movement from other fighters very well in the past against Sean O'Malley, but I still think that Sean O'Malley is not moving around the same way that Kyler Phillips is. He's not in and out in the same way that Kyler Phillips is. Actually, you know what? Sean O'Malley is very good at getting in and out, so I take that back. But Chris Gutierrez was outstriking Pedro Munhoz. Maybe not when it comes to the scorecards, but he's landing more low kicks. He's landing good teeps to the body. He was bringing Pedro Munhoz a lot of problems, but Pedro landed the bigger shots and ended up winning that fight because of that. I'm thinking if that's Kyler Phillips, his movement combined with his good low kicks, with his diverse attacks, could bring Pedro Munhoz problems. I love his body kick here. I think I'm picking Kyler Phillips by decision, and I'm really mad at myself because I've been on Pedro Munhoz, but I just got a wrong feeling about Pedro Munhoz on this one. I feel like too many people are expecting him to win. He's old. If anyone's athletically declining, it's Pedro Munhoz. If anyone is going to be just doing a little bit better, what's the word? If anyone is going to be getting better at this point in their career, it's Kyler Phillips. He's younger. He's had a good performance against Song Yadong. And Pedro Munhoz has good low kicks, but at times I feel like it's out of range a lot of the time. I love Kyler Phillips in and out of range. I don't think he's that great. I don't think he'll ever be a champion because of that cardio. I can't trust him to do it. But I feel like everyone is saying that he's gassing out. His cardio is so bad. They're just completely over-exaggerating it massively. Because I'm watching him be patient against Raoni Barcelos. I thought he won round 2. Round 3 was pretty close, but I did give it to Raoni Barcelos. And then again, Raoni Barcelos just struggled with the movement from Christian Quinones, so maybe that was just a really tough matchup for Raoni Barcelos. So then Pedro Munhoz will do better with it. Oh my gosh, I want to pick Pedro Munhoz now, dude. I'm picking Kyler Phillips. I got to do it. I got a feeling that he wins this fight. This is such a close fight for me to predict that I'm going to go with the feeling, but I'm telling you, play the inside the distance decision, no action on Pedro Munhoz. If Kyler really does slow down and Pedro does push very high-paced fights early, it's probably going to be a little bit rough for Kyler Phillips, but I do think that in a pure striking fight, Kyler Phillips won't gas out as bad, and I don't think he was as gassed in the Raoni Barcelos fight as a lot of people will say. Low confidence as it gets. There's a lot of those picks on this card, but I'm going with Kyler Phillips. So let's move on to the next fight of the card. Mateusz Gamrot versus Rafael dos Anjos. In this matchup, I'm going with Mateusz Gamrot. I'm going with Mateusz Gamrot. He's got a good pace, really good wrestling. RDA has been taken down in the past. Covington had success. Covington had a very high pace. Covington got him down multiple times. But outside of that, I mean, RDA is just not looking as good as he once was. Getting taken down by Vicente Luque. Held in the clinch a lot, just not being the stronger guy there. And I just think he is old. He's probably not going to hit with the same power that he did in the past. He is durable, so I think this makes it to a decision. But Gamrot at this point in his career, with his pace, with his youth and ability to improve at these stages in his career, is going to be something that I do really side with here. He's a minus 400 favorite. I don't think that's the greatest odds. I think RDA might actually be fairly live here as he is pretty experienced, and Mateusz does tend to get hit and just get into some weird exchanges where in a 3-rounder he can get hit and dropped in a couple of sequences and just end up losing the fight. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he has a tough style of feet for anybody. He can work in the takedowns, push a really high pace, and RDA might have the better submission game, but he's old. He's probably not as flexible as he used to be. I'm trusting Gamrot. I think he gets this done. But at minus 400, I don't know, man. Maybe the over is a good play here, but even then, maybe RDA comes out looking so washed that Gamrot can land whatever he wants. I pick Mateusz Gamrot, 30-27 decision. I think he finds the takedowns, pushes a good pressure. On the feet, he'll have success. But I don't know if he'll look like a world beater. I mean, I'm not super excited for this fight. It's not the most competitive fight. I'm kind of surprised. RDA's still ranked number 11 at lightweight. Who did he recently beat at lightweight, though? I feel like he's not that high level anymore. We'll see. RDA is a fun guy to root for. I mean, obviously, he's a legend, but I just don't think I can trust him here. Gamrot's fairly good, despite fluking his performance against Fiziev and knowing a thing or two about getting lucky. I just think that Mateusz Gamrot gets this one done. Moving on to Katlyn Chookagian versus Maycee Barber in this matchup. I'm taking the younger, more athletic fighter in Maycee Barber. If anyone's making improvements, it's Maycee Barber. If anyone's on the athletic decline, it is Katlyn Chookagian. At range, Katlyn Chookagian can be tricky, but I feel like she misses a lot of her strikes. Against Amanda Ribas, that was a very close, controversial decision, whereas Maycee Barber went out there and, without any controversy, finished Amanda Ribas, who I do think is a very solid fighter. Pretty interesting to look at how those two styles play out, but I think Maycee Barber is strong, athletic, maybe can work in some grappling on the feet. She's pretty good within the pocket. She's more powerful. Katlyn Chookagian is a little bit weird for a lot of fighters, but I do think that Maycee Barber should get this one done by decision. I'll say 30-27. Another thing to mention is Katlyn Chookagian is going through some trauma in her life right now. If you haven't seen on her interviews, she's gone through a couple of miscarriages throughout this camp, so she's probably not in the right mind space. Obviously, I hope she's doing well with that, but at the same time, when it comes to a prediction standpoint, that's not something that I like on her side. So I'm taking Maycee Barber. I'll take her by decision, 30-27. Moving on to Curtis Blaydes versus Jailton Almeida in this matchup. I'm going with Curtis Blaydes to beat Jailton Almeida. In this matchup, I think that Curtis Blaydes will be able to stuff the takedowns, and on the feet, he is the better striker. When I'm looking at Jailton Almeida wrestle, finding these takedowns against Jairzinho, not only Jairzinho, but Derek Lewis as well. He's shooting with bad takedown posture. He's shooting into the knees of his opponents. I see stuff like that, and I'm just thinking to myself, the heavyweight division is complete trash. I know Jailton looks good, and he is big, he is strong, clearly on steroids. But even then, I don't care how quick he is. It's just technically his wrestling is not there. And against Curtis Blaydes, who is a big guy with much better weight distribution than anyone Jailton Almeida has fought, who is like 260 pounds, good power in the hands, has had some wrestling success in his own. He's a JUCO national wrestling champion. I believe he's a Division I wrestler as well. On the amateur scene, he was a kickboxing champion. Those are good accolades. But outside of that, just breaking down the film of Chris Curtis, I meant to say Curtis Blaydes, sorry. Against Curtis Blaydes, I'm watching his film. And sure, he got taken down a couple times by Cody East, and I'll get to that, and taken down by Volkov as well, but he wasn't preparing his grappling the same way that he's preparing his grappling for Jailton Almeida. Originally, this fight was booked for UFC Sao Paulo, but that ended up being Almeida versus Lewis, as you guys know. I was going to be picking Curtis Blaydes there, and I'm picking Curtis Blaydes now. Maybe not as confident because now I know Jailton Almeida has some decent cardio. He went 5 rounds, and that's a good takeaway that you can have. And taking down Derek Lewis without getting finished, like Curtis Blaydes was, is already something that is kind of interesting to add to that fight. I do think that I almost became a little bit less confident in Curtis Blaydes, but that was because I watched tape, and I watched like 10 to 12 fights of Curtis Blaydes, almost his whole entire career, just trying to figure out if this guy can stuff a takedown. And I can't tell you that I know confidently that he will, because when people have shot in on takedowns, they have gotten him. But against Cody East, the stats say he got taken down 3 times. He got taken down twice. And both of those times, he was rocked before. One of them, he was rocked like 20 seconds before, looked like he was back, but even then still got taken down. Didn't show good takedown defense, but even then, I don't think in that camp he was preparing for Cody East to shoot takedowns on him. Outside of that, there was another one where he was rocked and then got taken down. I still think that his takedown defense isn't beautiful, but I just think he knows how to sprawl a takedown with the way that Jailton Almeida is shooting into the knees of his opponents rather than shooting with proper posture, wrapping his hands around the butt, and then fighting takedowns. Sure, Jailton is strong, and he looks like one of the strongest guys in the entire division, but doing that to Derek Lewis, who is so top-heavy, and the same thing with Jairzinho Rozenstruik, to me, isn't that impressive. Now, giving Jairzinho Rozenstruik the first submission loss of his entire career is pretty impressive. We just saw Jairzinho Rozenstruik just go out there and beat Shamil Gaziev, so that's something to mention. But I'm just telling you, I just don't really believe in the pure technical techniques of Jailton Almeida's wrestling offense. And I think if someone's able to stuff his takedowns, that's when the cardio problems can start to hit Jailton Almeida. Because you can land takedowns, but in reality, he's having all this time to rest on top of Derek Lewis, where he's in full mount. Derek Lewis is just accepting position, holding the hands of Jailton Almeida, and just kind of just accepting a weird sexual position for fucking 5 rounds. It was a weird fight. I'm not going to fault Jailton Almeida for not finishing that fight too much, but I do kind of worry that if Curtis Blaydes gets put on his back and he's not getting back up to the feet, he's just going to hold Jailton Almeida's hands, and that's just the blueprint. But even then, Curtis Blaydes is the strongest fighter Jailton Almeida has ever fought by large. He has the best scrambles that Jailton Almeida has fought by large, and he probably has the best, most technical striking that Jailton Almeida has fought by large. I don't care about Derek Lewis. I don't care about Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Curtis Blaydes was beating Derek Lewis on the feet very handily in round 1 until he shot in on a bad takedown and got KO'd. And even then, in a rematch, I'm taking Curtis Blaydes. There's so many fights on Curtis Blaydes' career where I'm watching his hands, and he is looking underratedly extremely quick. Sure, he gets hit, but his chin is one of the most underrated chins in the entire UFC. If you hear the way that people talk about Curtis Blaydes, you would think that he's a chinny guy. Not true whatsoever. Not true in the slightest. He is taking big shots from Francis Ngannou, recovering. In the first fight, he says TKO on record, but obviously that was because his eye got inflamed and the doctor had to stop that fight. They rematch. He didn't even get flatlined. Was actually a semi-protested stoppage. Some people didn't agree with it. Kind of a weird stoppage from Mark Goddard. But he wasn't flatlined after eating massive shots from Francis Ngannou. He's been rocked multiple times by Francis Ngannou, recovered and stayed in the fight. And that stoppage obviously wasn't a flatline KO. A lot of guys take that same shot from Francis and they are flatlined easily. I know Derek Lewis flatlined him, but we know Derek Lewis has some of the best power in the entire UFC. And the other KO loss is to Sergey Pavlovich, where he wasn't even flatlined there either. Sure, that was recent and he is coming off a knockout loss, which does scare me, but he's coming off a year layoff as well, so that tells me he's going to have enough time to recover. And even on the feet, Jailton Almeida is so unproven. Only thing he has shown us is a front kick and I think a leg kick. Outside of that, we haven't seen any other strikes. Maybe a jab thrown from Jailton Almeida on the come up, but I'm not going to be trusting in something that I haven't seen just because his front kick looks good. He's got very flexible legs, so that is something to note, but I do want to bring up, if Curtis Blaydes shoots takedowns, which is why everyone's saying, I can't trust Curtis Blaydes and this and that, because if he shoots takedowns, he's going to get submitted from on bottom. I just know what's going to happen. I don't know if that's going to be the case, to be completely honest with you, because we have saw Curtis Blaydes take down Alistair Overeem, take down Oleksiej Oleinik, get caught in submissions, and just fight through them, but be very calm, very patient, doing the correct things. Watch the Oleksiej Oleinik fight. I know Oleksiej Oleinik isn't known as the greatest fighter of all time, but he is a great submission threat off of his back. He defended the armbar very well. He defended the triangle very well, very patiently, got back to side control. And when he didn't like what he was seeing on the ground, he got back up and said, fuck this, let's strike. I think he could do that against Jailton Almeida if he does take down Jailton Almeida. I think he's fairly smarter than he gets credit for. And the reason why he doesn't have success is because he trusts his hands too much. And it's also because he is landing on Sergey Pavlovich. In comparison to Tom Aspinall, too, he had pretty solid hand speed for the first 15 seconds. I didn't think he looked that much slower than Tom Aspinall. Like, he is a threat on the feet. He's got good power. Very underrated chin. As I have said, he's only getting knocked out by extremely powerful punchers. And Jailton Almeida, at 241 pounds with very unproven striking, I don't think has much for Curtis Blaydes. If Curtis Blaydes is able to sprawl the takedowns from a guy with bad technical takedown entry technique. Now, Jailton Almeida, if he gets Curtis Blaydes down, will win this fight, potentially by submission, potentially by holding him down. But I'm watching Curtis Blaydes, and I did want to get to the Cody East and the Volkov performances. He probably didn't have a training camp centered around sprawling takedowns. He has now had 2 entire training camps preparing for Jailton Almeida, because when he pulled out, it was very close to the actual fight date. But I guarantee you that whole camp, he is preparing to sprawl takedowns from Jailton Almeida. This is a very linear game plan from Curtis Blaydes. It's sprawl, and it's to beat him on the feet, whether he's going to be technical. Because let's say he's being a little bit more cautious, like he has been in the past against Sergey Pavlovich. That probably means to me that he's not going to be caught overextending. If he's cautious, that could really, really benefit him. He did this against Chris Daukaus as well. I think if he's cautious, it could really work to his favor. I'm telling you, he's very underratedly quick. He just weighed in around like 257 pounds, so that is something to note, but I do think that he's going to be able to stuff the takedowns. And when he does, it's bad news for Jailton Almeida. And I think just one round of stuffing the takedowns for Jailton Almeida will make Jailton Almeida look tired, really, really just not look so great on the feet. I can't trust Jailton Almeida, man. Cody East found I already broke that down. The reason why Volkov found a takedown on Curtis Blaydes was because Curtis Blaydes was so gassed at the end of round 4, and even when he was gassed, he continued to push through. I think Curtis Blaydes has pushed insane paces throughout his career with grappling and striking both. He's underratedly very fun to watch. I was rewatching a lot of his fights. I'm like, okay, There's a couple of boring performances in here, but a lot of the time when he is mixing wrestling with striking, this guy is busy. He's eating big shots. He recovers, and he's coming back, landing big shots of his own. He's very fun to watch, very quick to a certain degree for the heavyweight division. Let me make that clear. I think Jailton Almeida is quicker, but Curtis Blaydes is much quicker than Derek Lewis on the feet. That was very clear. He's the better, more technical striker than Derek Lewis on the feet. He's got some very good low kicks as well. Very underrated part about his game. I just think he's very underrated when it comes to his striking. Sure, he can get knocked out. I picked Sergey Pavlovich over Curtis Blaydes. I'm taking Curtis Blaydes here against Jailton Almeida. I don't think beating Derek Lewis or beating Jairzinho Rozenstruik proves a damn thing. And if you really get into the nitty-gritties with the way he's shooting in on takedowns, his posture on his takedowns, and just the takedowns that he goes for, he doesn't have good single legs. He doesn't have the greatest trips. He's gotten a trip before, but I think that might be what brings Curtis Blaydes problems. I just don't see that being the case. Shit, man. This is a fun fight. Confidence on Curtis Blaydes, I'm going to say like a 55% chance to win this one. Because although I'm mentioning all these factors as to why I like Curtis Blaydes, making him seem like he's the most underrated fighter of all time, he does have a bad fight IQ, and he can get taken down, and it could be as simple as being a junior college wrestling national champion doesn't mean anything, because there's another guy named Thomas Peterson who had the exact same accolade, and he just got all of his takedown stuff by Jamal Puguez, who is another pretty bad heavyweight. So who knows? I'm going to pick Curtis Blaydes. He's been at the top, fought the who's who. I don't mind him striking in this matchup, and if there's anything that people have criticized for him having bad fight IQ, it's because he is striking too much. So Curtis Blaydes is the pick. I'm going to say round 2 KO. I think if he's stuffing takedowns, Jailton Almeida is going to be put in some bad positions on the feet, and Curtis is going to have fun and do better as the fight goes on. Even if he gets hit, I trust his chin to recover. If he is put on bottom, though, he's probably going to look like a fish out of water. So it is what it is. And he's only 33 years old. I'll move on to the next fight of the card, which is Song Yadong versus Petr Yan. I love this fight. This is probably my favorite fight on the entire card. I'm a big fan of both these guys. Song Yadong has good boxing. He's got a couple of good low kicks. He's got a good body kick. Very powerful, very explosive guy. Pretty fast starter with a very good chin. When it comes to his wrestling, he's got very good takedown defense. When he gets taken down, he's got very quick, solid scrambles back up to the feet. In the clinch, he doesn't really do too well, but he explodes out of the clinch, and he doesn't stay in the clinch for long, so he doesn't allow much success from his opponents, which could really benefit him against Petr Yan, who has a very good clinch. Very good chin, very good power, very quick. Started out very fast against Corey Sandhagen, has started out pretty fast throughout his career. Very interested to see how he does against Petr Yan, who is a technical mastermind when it comes to the striking. Petr Yan is on a 3-fight losing streak. He's losing to Aljamain Sterling, the former champion, Sean O'Malley, the current champion, Murad Dvalishvili, who I believe will be the future champion. I think Murad will beat Marlon Vera or Sean O'Malley, depending on who wins, and he should get the next title shot, and from there, I would predict him to beat either one of them. Murad is freaky. He's got insane cardio. I don't fault Petr Yan that much for losing to Murad because he stuffed a lot of the takedowns. Murad shot damn near 50 takedowns in that fight. It was a UFC record by multiple takedowns, quite a few actually, maybe several. Petr Yan's got good takedown defense. He's got very weird, unorthodox trips that work out very well for him. He works it in very well to striking, has a takedown threat in almost all of his fights, which is something to note here. Song Yadong did fight Corey Sandhagen, and Sandhagen shot in on some takedowns, but I think the takedown threat from Yan is going to be a little bit bigger. Yan's grappling is better than Corey Sandhagen's, but on the feet, what makes this fight so interesting? 3 rounds. Yan starts out slow. He's a great boxer. He's also got some very great kicks. He fights very well out of both stances. Song Yadong is almost purely orthodox. I rarely see this guy switching stances. He's done it a couple of times, but when it comes down to it, he's very comfortable in the orthodox position. I don't think he should be fighting out of the southpaw. Maybe he matches Yan's stance, and maybe that's what he's looking for here to take away the head kick from Yan. But I think that he's going to stay orthodox most of the time. That's what he did against Corey Sandhagen, and he can have success there. What is open for Song Yadong? It's going to be the body from Petr Yan. I actually really like the uppercuts from him in this matchup because Petr Yan has that high guard, and you can split that guard with a well-timed uppercut. I haven't seen a lot of opponents rip uppercuts the same way that Song Yadong does to Petr Yan. I mean, Corey Sandhagen was good, wasn't ripping the uppercut that well, wasn't really ripping it that often. Sean O'Malley didn't really rip it the same way that we have seen Song Yadong do countless of times throughout his career. But at the same time, I'm not going to rely on that one strike to be the main difference here. He doesn't go to every single strike that I want to throw countlessly time and time again every single time I'm watching film with him. Because when I'm thinking about Song Yadong, I'm thinking about this guy with great, beautiful low kicks, great body kicks. He's going to deal with the stance switch as well because of these different tools that he does have. That open side body kick is really good, by the way. But when it comes down to it, I can't trust him because these tools that he has that are so good, at times he kind of abandons them. And maybe that's because he's going for a certain game plan against guys like Chris Gutierrez. He's kind of abandoning certain tools because he wants to stick to a very strict game plan. But I think you need the perfect game plan in this matchup to beat Petr Yan, or just to outdog your way and land the bigger shots, which has been proven to be a very tough game plan to go through against Petr Yan. So I think he should shoot takedowns early. From the get-go, Song needs to implement a grappling threat, but I think Petr will stuff the takedowns. I think he's not going to be that threatened from Song Yadong's takedown entries. I don't think Song Yadong is going to Moroz him. I'd actually be very surprised if that's the case, but it could happen. Song Yadong is quick. He's super strong. This is the strongest opponent Petr Yan will probably have ever faced. Song Yadong mentioned on his Twitter that he's probably going to be weighing around 170 pounds on fight day. That is crazy to me, but he's massive. Super, super strong guy. Very good chin, very good power. Starts out fast. So for that reason, I want to go with Yang. He was the original pick. But I'm watching Petr Yan fight Corey Sandhagen. I'm watching some of his super quick, crafty combinations where he's throwing out that lead hand. The lead hand's not even meant to land. Boom, he's landing the body kick. I'm watching body kicks land on Song Yadong from Corey Sandhagen, from guys like Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez was kind of chewing up the leg against Song Yadong, really playing that low kick game very well. Song Yadong, I think, got outstruck in that matchup on the feet. Obviously, he worked in takedowns, but that's concerning to me because he's not going to be getting the takedowns against Petr Yan. And I love Yan, and I love I love Song Yadong as well. But I think that Petr Yan, when it comes to his body kicks, when it comes to his low kicks, his ability to fight out of both stances, his ability within the clinch will have success. I'm not going to trust on Song Yadong to really rock Petr Yan. The only time we've really seen that happen is by Sean O'Malley. That was a great stance switch. It was with a very long, rangy striker. It was a beautiful setup, and even then, when he got hurt, he recovered immediately and landed a big shot of his own. Sean O'Malley has great power, but so does Song Yadong, so it makes it very interesting. I think the uppercuts will be there. I think him ripping to the body will help massively, but he's got to start out fast in round one. He's got to secure the first round, which I think he will. I want to pick Song Yadong, but I got to go with Petr Yan because something's telling me, man, although Song is good, I'm watching these technical flaws where he's getting chewed up with the legs. I think that's going to affect him. The body kicks out of both stances for Petr Yan, and I love Petr Yan's ability to roll with shots and land shots over the top. And Song Yadong is open to getting countered. He's been countered multiple times. Now, sure, it doesn't really do anything to his chin. He just eats it, and that's all. But I think that Petr Yan will land some nice combinations. Song Yadong does throw his shots a little bit too wide for my liking. But if Petr Yan starts out slow, loses the first round, round two is where it comes down to in my head. I think round three he should be good, but it doesn't mean that he's locked up. I mean, both these guys might show some damage. I think we might see a very bloody fight. Yan has bled before. Song Yadong clearly has the scar tissue to be bleeding like a motherfucker. So this is going to be a very close decision. I think I'm going to go with Petr Yan, although he's typically not very good at getting the split decisions to go his way. I just think round two, he's going to be working in body kicks, and I think against Sean O'Malley, he started a lot quicker than a lot of people will give him credit for. Sean O'Malley is a very dangerous guy, very unorthodox guy, and a lot of people thought that Yan won round one, and that's what won him that fight. I thought he won that fight. I'm not going to call it a robbery. It was insanely close. But when it comes down to it, he started out pretty fast there. And I think the full reason why he starts out slow, really trying to find the range, is because it's 5 rounds. It could also be because he's trying to preserve his cardio. But yeah, ultimately, I'm picking Petr Yan. I think the body kicks, the way he sets him up, his ability to counter will bring Song Yadong problems, but Song Yadong can land the bigger shots. The uppercuts will be there. The body shots will be there. If I was Uriah Faber, I would tell Song Yadong to shoot some takedowns every once in a while to kind of just mix up the striking rhythm from Song Yadong and give Petr Yan something to worry about. Stay out of the clinch. When they're in the same stance, rip the low kick. Song Yadong has a very good low kick, but he doesn't go to it time and time again, which is something that I want to see him doing if I want to be confident that he's going to be ripping to it in this fight. Maybe he looks for some elbows. Corey Sandhagen mentioned in his prediction where he actually predicted Song Yadong to win, that he's seeing Song Yadong going for a lot of elbows on the pads. And if he's doing that against Petr Yan does seem to have a lot of scar tissue. Maybe he opens up Big Petr. Big Petr was opened up against Sean O'Malley, so that is something to note. But Song Yadong is the guy that gets opened up as well. We saw Corey Sandhagen open up, so that's interesting. But when they're in the same stance, I'm talking about orthodox versus orthodox. Rip the low kick. When Petr Yan switches back, immediately fire that body kick. It will be there. Petr Yan is open to the body. You got to rip to the body. Look for the uppercuts, but also set up the hands. You just got to make it a dogfight and hope that your chin holds up. I don't know. I mean, even then, within the pocket, Petr Yan is so good. So I would say be the more technical guy, but you can't really beat Petr at range. It's really, really hard to for a guy like Song Yadong, so you just got to hope that you land the bigger shots. And I think that is very possible, but you got to work in some takedowns as well to mix up the rhythm, to give yourself a takedown threat. Fuck, man, I'm excited for this fight. I know Jan didn't look good against Moroz, but Moroz is really good, and shit, Moroz was working the low kicks very well as well, so that's something that you should look for. I'm telling you, rip that damn low kick. When he switches back into the southpaw stance, rip that open side body kick. It will be there. You got to trust your power. You got to trust your chin. I hate to tell him to trade in the pocket with one of the best pocket boxers there is, but at range, I don't really trust him. I don't trust him unless he's really doing those things, rip into the body and rip into the low kick, and it's going to give him that much success. He's got to be active. I just see him at times struggling with the range, and I feel like he rushes in. That's a big thing why I don't trust Song Yadong, is I feel like he's rushing in to land his big shots. Can't really rush in against Petr Yan. Yan is the more technical striker. I want to go with Song for just the basic reasons of how fast he starts versus Jan being slow. But I think the whole slow narrative is being a little bit overestimated, a little bit over-exaggerated. Just because it's a 3-rounder doesn't mean that Jan can't go out there, can't be a dog. I really trust Jan's chin, so he's going to be the pick, 29-28. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, finally, which is Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. I'll keep this one a little bit more short and simple. Gilbert Burns has been dropped multiple times by a jab. Bilal was having success with a jab. Usman dropped him twice with a jab. Khamzat Chimaev dropped him with the jab. JDM has one of the best jabs in the division. He fights very well out of both stances, has some very good body shots. I have been saying for a while now that Gilbert Burns is very open to getting ripped to the body. JDM rips to the body better than anyone in the division. He's got a great chin, took some great shots from Basil Hafez, and I know everyone is using that as the main performance to pick Gilbert Burns over JDM, and I completely understand it, but I'm pretty confident on the JDM side because he's stuffed. 17 out of 20 takedowns from Basil Hafez. And Basil Hafez is a very strong guy. And he has that wrestling style that Gilbert Burns doesn't, where he's shooting in nonstop when it comes to his takedowns, pushing an insane pressure. And we have seen time and time again, these wrestlers that keep pushing insane paces, don't slow down, are bringing guys so many problems. Very impressive for Basil Hafez because that was short notice from him, but you also have to know that for JDM, that was his second weight cut in 2 weeks. So obviously, he was probably not at his best when it came to his physical ability. He already cuts a lot of weight to the welterweight division, so he's going to be the pick. I think he's going to switch stances very well. And I think he's very good with his counters, a lot better than Khamzat Chimaev. His boxing is more clean. He's got much better cardio than Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev clearly slows down. We've seen that time and time again. Although the round that won him that fight was round 3, I just think that JDM is going to be there in his face for 3 rounds, be able to take the shots from Gilbert Burns. He took clean shots against Basil. Rips to the body so damn well. And I see Gilbert Burns coming off a shoulder/arm injury. I know that surgery was required. He's 38 years old. I just can't trust that he's going to be at the best state of his career. I see a lot of people on the side of Gilbert Burns. At the same time, JDM was an underdog. I got him at plus 135. He is now flipped to the minus 170 favorite against Kevin Holland. He dealt with a really long reach disadvantage very well. I thought he won 29-28, if not 30-27 very clearly. I know a lot of people thought Kevin Holland won that fight, but just rewatch it. Kevin Holland wasn't landing that clean. Now, Kevin Holland did fairly good, and I was pretty impressed from Kevin Holland there, considering how good I think JDM is. And I'll get to that fight in just 1 second, but when it comes down to it, I think JDM's ability to just pull back, find some nice counters, work that jab in, work out of both stances, rip to the body, use those as natural underhooks, should be able to set the takedowns from Gilbert Burns, who to me has never had that great of takedown entries. He wasn't able to submit Jorge Masvidal, and he wasn't able to submit Wonderboy Thompson, who aren't that great of grapplers. And when JDM has been put in bad positions, he has defended them very well. There's been multiple times where he's been caught in arm triangles, and he fights through it very well. Eventually ends back up on the feet, and when he gets taken down, he's very good at working back up to the feet very slowly but surely. So he's going to be the pick. I'm going to say round 2 KO. Confidence. Fairly confident. Now he's minus 170, so I'm not going to tell you guys to smash that money line, but at plus 135, I would have told you to smash it then. He's now flipped. A lot of times when these underdogs flip, they end up winning the fight. I'm pretty confident in JDM, like I said. Gilbert Burns is nice. He's fun. He's cool. But I just think a solid boxer like JDM is a style that's going to bring him a lot of problems because Gilbert Burns' takedowns really aren't that good, I'm telling you guys. And I just think Gilbert Burns is not going to have the same pressure, the same strength that Basil Hafez did. And I know Basil Hafez is a short-notice guy who's lost a couple of times in the regional scene, but he's a fairly smart guy. I was watching a video of him. He's actually very well-spoken. He's very educated when it comes to mixed martial arts. He had a very rough weight cut fighting JDM, so that's something to note. Maybe that wasn't the best version of Basil Hafez, but regardless, he presented a really tough stylistic matchup for JDM just based off of shooting relentless takedowns with a lot of strength and taking the shots from JDM very well. He has a great chin, and I think that Gilbert Burns doesn't have as good of a chin. He'll get dropped in the first round. He'll get hurt. He'll have some success. Maybe he gets JDM down at one time, but JDM will defend it very well. JDM's been training with Volk. Craig Jones as well. Volk has some very good submission defense. I imagine he's learning a thing or two out there in Australia with Volk. So New Zealand maybe, whatever the fuck it is. I don't even know. How do I not know that? JDM round 2 KO is going to be the pick. I also wanted to mention against Basil Hafez, a couple times he got taken down because he jumped guillotine. I am more than confident that he's not going to be jumping guillotine here. Alexander Volkanovski went through a prediction between JDM and Gilbert Burns and actually did say that he knew that JDM knows where the fight should be and he's not going to be jumping guillotines. Not outright, but that's essentially what he did indicate. So another factor to be confident on the JDM side. Moving on to the next fight card, we got Kevin Holland versus MVP. I'm taking Kevin Holland. I don't mind the MVP pick. He's quick. He's got a very weird Taekwondo style that's very hard for a lot of fighters to deal with. But he's 36 years old, and he's fighting Bellator guys. He just lost a boxing fight to Mike Perry. Now, regardless of who you think won that fight, I thought MVP probably could have got it. But anyways, getting boxed up and hurt and dropped at times by Mike Perry is never a very good sign. And I think that Kevin Holland has the reach that MVP is not used to dealing with. MVP is typically the longer, more rangy guy. Here, he might be the taller by like an inch or two. But when it comes down to it, Kevin Holland has an 81-inch reach advantage. He's got very good power. He's got very good cardio as well. He goes for a very high output a lot of the time. And if someone is in the face of MVP, I think MVP will struggle and he will get hit. And I think he'll potentially get dropped, hurt, or he'll lose the decision. I mean, we saw Kevin Holland hurt Wonderboy Thompson, and off that time, he broke his hand. And then from there, it was almost the end. But even against Wonderboy Thompson, he's ripping low kicks nonstop. And we saw Douglas Lima ripping low kicks against MVP. And Douglas Lima, whatever the fuck his name is, ripped the low kick 2 times per round, and even then, it was just clearly landing very clean. I think Kevin Holland's going to be ripping the low kick nonstop. I think he is taking pride in the UFC. You heard him on the press conference talking about Bellator, ain't shit, ain't this, ain't that, whatever. And I keep seeing people betting MVP. I have not seen one bet on the Kevin Holland side, and yet the money line, if you check the odds, has stayed the same throughout the week. I think MVP feels like another public betting underdog. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe people are betting Kevin Holland beyond what I have seen. Maybe it's more of the casual fans betting Kevin Holland, but we'll see. I think Kevin Holland has a weird enough frame. He's able to generate power from kind of weird, unorthodox movements. I do trust him here. I trust his volume, and I trust him to bring a stylistic matchup that MVP isn't really used to. Now, if Kevin Holland goes out there playing the Taekwondo game at range and is just entertaining this Klo technical striking matchup at range, I think MVP can win that fight. I just don't think Kevin Holland is going to do that. I hope they just don't talk shit the entire time. I hope that they actually fight, and if they actually fight, I trust Kevin Holland. I think he's got the better hands. Like I said, the weird reach, a frame that MVP has never fought against. When it comes to the grappling, Kevin Holland's clearly the better grappler. I would like to see him grapple. If he grapples, he wins this fight, and that's probably not going to be the case. If he does hurt MVP, he'll look for submissions, but I don't think MVP is going to be shooting in on takedowns. I'll take Kevin Holland. I'll say a 29-28 decision. This is a close one to predict, but I think seeing him rip to the low kicks against Wonderboy Thompson like 40, 45 times in that fight is something that makes me very confident that he will do the same here, and he's going to push a more insane pace since it is 3 rounds. I trust him here. He's the better mixed martial artist. When it comes to the hands, he has the better hands. MVP obviously might be the better overall striker, but I think that Kevin Holland has a weird enough frame to just debunk him and give him problems. MVP is going to be flashy. He might be doing too much just to make a fun UFC debut. If anyone's feeling the nerves, it's probably MVP. I know Kevin Holland hasn't been taking his career very seriously lately, but I kind of feel like he's going to be just repping the UFC, very proud in the UFC, trying to rep the UFC well, not trying to make Bellator look all that good. And I think he's going to make this an ego battle for himself to win this fight, bring the fight to Michael Venom Page, and I think he'll have success. I'm going to say 29-28, like I said. MVP isn't that bad, but I think that Kevin Holland has a very good clenched knee. I'm so glad that I mentioned this because he was doing this very well against Wonderboy, very well a couple other times as well. I think within the clench, MVP is going to have a lot of trouble with the knees from Kevin Holland, with the shots on the break as well. I think that Kevin can make this a scrap, and in a scrap, he does win. And if he works on the grappling, he wins as well. But if he fights at range and fights a point fight, I mean, he might lose that one as well. But even then, MVP can make mistakes, and Kevin Holland has weird, long, rangy, weird power. So we're going to go with Kevin Holland here. I've said that 5 times already. Next fight of the card is Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis. I'm going with BSD. I love BSD. I actually really, really respect Dustin Poirier for taking this fight. I'm very low on confidence against BSD, or for BSD, because it looks like he is staff. I'm watching every single one of his fights. I watched a couple of his fights on the regional scene, and the guy gets hit. I have never seen him throw a kick outside of the southpaw stance, and that is a red flag because Dustin Poirier is also southpaw, so he's not going to be able to have the same success with the body kicks with the southpaw kick. He's not going to be able to throw the head kick the same way. We have seen almost 90% of all head kick KOs are when they are in opposite stances of each other. BSD against Frevola, I mean, I don't want to say those opposite stances because Frevola was kind of just circling to Benoit's head kick, so it kind of was an opposite stance, but it was more of Frevola just running off. But outside of that, anyone you can remember recently, Poirier versus Gaethje 2. Opposite stances. Vera versus Dominic Cruz. Opposite stances. Leon versus Kamaru, right? Brian Battle versus Takashi Saito. Why did that one come to mind? But all these recent head kicks, opposite stances. I think that they're going to be in the same stance. They're going to be in the same stance. I saw him hitting pads, and what I actually saw from him is incorporating a switch kick where he's stepping through after throwing his hands and then throwing the body kick. So I think the fact that he's already seeing that is indicating to me that his coach knows what's going on. His coach is Daniel Warren, who coached up Anderson Silva. Benoit has a very good grappling threat. He's been submitting a lot of great jiu-jitsu guys. So because of that, I think if he gets Dustin Poirier down, he'll have more success than Chandler, and I think he'll find a submission in the second round. Now, if that staff is a real thing, and he's taken antibiotics for it, he could gas out a lot earlier, and because of that, I could genuinely see him gassing out after a round and a half, as he hasn't looked like the most fresh guy as the fight goes later. There's been a fight on the regional scene where it actually went to the third round, and he was getting taken down. Someone was pushing an insane pace on him, and he actually found, I want to say, an armbar, or maybe he submitted the guy from on top. I think it was a rear naked choke, actually, but he's never looked that fresh as the fight goes later. Against Thiago Moises, he pushed an insane pace and beat the brakes off of Thiago Moises. No one really beats Thiago Moises like that. I know Joel Alvarez kind of beat him in the first round, knocked him out, but Benoit beat him for 2 rounds, beating him on the feet, taking him down, beating him on the ground. Thiago Moises brought more problems to Islam Makhachev than he did to Benoit Saint-Denis. Now, I know he landed on Benoit Saint-Denis, but Benoit's chin is insane. I think for the first 2 rounds, his chin's going to be able to take the big shots. I think he'll shoot in on takedowns, and I think he'll command respect on the feet, and then from there, he'll use that to shoot in on takedowns up against the cage. And when he finds the back of Dustin Poirier, because Poirier does give up his back when he's getting back up to the feet, he's going to give up his back. And Benoit will be on his back, threatening a rear naked choke. Chandler was in the same position, but Chandler was too high up on the back, made a mistake, wasn't able to finish it. I think Benoit finishes it. I'm going to say rear naked choke round 2. But outside of that, we have seen trips from Khabib multiple times and from Charles Oliveira give Dustin Poirier problems when it comes to his takedown defense. Benoit is a judo black belt, and he has a very good trip arsenal to his takedowns. He's got very good get-ups from on bottom. He's got very good sweeps, very weird, crafty, got his own unique style on the ground, but good submissions, extremely strong. I just trust the strength of this guy. Obviously, French special forces, so he's got a very good mentality here. Now, that's not the main reason why I am picking him. I think on the feet, Poirier is 100% the better striker, and I feel like these odds are massively disrespecting Poirier, but just because the odds are disrespecting Poirier, it makes Poirier the public underdog of the week. I hate to make that comparison every single time I'm predicting fights, but when I see Benoit Saint-Denis at minus 150, expanding, and now he's minus 250, minus 220, whatever it is. I think it's minus 200 right now. But it tells me that the books are respecting the money coming in on the Benoit side, and because of that, that makes me feel like the books are expecting Benoit to win. Now, if that staff really does affect them, it could be as simple as this. Dustin Poirier survives the first 2 rounds, and then from there, it is Dustin Poirier all the way. If I'm betting this fight, I'm going to tell you guys to live bet this fight after it hits round 3. Once round 2 ends, that's when you should look to live bet Dustin Poirier, because I think Benoit will find the takedowns early. And when he does, he will put Dustin Poirier in some bad positions. All Dustin Poirier needs to do is survive, and as the fight goes later, it massively benefits him. I can't trust Benoit to have great cardio, but if he does, I wouldn't be surprised. He does have staff, and he is taking antibiotics. If he is, that's going to massively hinder his cardio. I think his kicks would massively work well against Dustin Poirier, but now that he is in the southpaw versus southpaw stance, something that he's not used to, he's got to find a different way outside of that open body kick that he's used to going. He's going to go for the switch kick. It might be awkward for him, and if those kicks are awkward for him, it's going to be a rough time for him on the feet. I just do think that he commands enough respect on the feet. With the way that he blitzes in, he's going to find takedowns. And if he finds takedowns, he's the better grappler. He will find dominant positions. And from there, I trust him to find finishes. I trust him to not fumble the position like Michael Chandler. Dustin Poirier tends to gas out a little bit more against grapplers, and Benoit is so strong. I truly do believe if he gets down Dustin Poirier, he's either going to be landing shots. He's so busy on the ground too, where he takes his opponents down. He doesn't just go for the submission. He's just landing strike, 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 hurting you, gets to a good position, threatening the choke. He doesn't get the choke. He's working, working, working. And I feel like as the fight gets closer to the end of the round, he really pushes for the finish then because he knows he can rest in between rounds. We saw this against Munhoz, I think a little bit against Gabriel Miranda. And Miranda is a guy with 16 submission wins on his career. Beat Bonfim, a guy that a lot of people were so high on because he beat McKinney. I picked Bonfim over McKinney, and I said Bonfim has a very tough matchup against Benoit. I picked him over Benoit, but even then, Benoit proved me wrong. And ever since then, I've been on the Benoit train. I've loved Benoit ever since his debut. I've been a big fan of this guy for a very long time. But yeah, I mean, fuck, this is a fun one. How old is he? I think he's 27 or 28. He's going to be massively improving. I like his coach. I like the fact that I'm seeing him throwing switch kicks already. Outside of that, what can I bring up here? Poirier's got good counters. Benoit is so open to getting countered, but his chin is so good that I kind of just trust him to take good shots early for the first 2 rounds. And if he finds takedowns, that might be it. I'm not going to say it's an immediate submission, but I think he's underratedly very good at pushing for the finish towards the end of the round. Last thing I'm going to mention, he's like 3-4 inches taller than Dustin Poirier. Massive reach advantage. Tall, big, strong guy. Probably cutting a lot of weight, but I just saw him on the scales this morning. He looks shredded. He is crazy. He is the one Frenchman that I can trust to get in a dogfight and come out on top. And that's crazy to say because he's going up against Dustin Poirier, but I think he's so well-rounded and so dangerous everywhere that when this fight hits the ground, Dustin Poirier is going to be shocked by how relentless, tough Benoit is with his power submissions. I've said everything twice over now, so Benoit's a pick, round 2 submission. I think Poirier is the much better striker. It's as simple as if he stuffs the takedowns or just survives the submission attempts or just stuffs the takedowns outright, he could beat Benoit later, and even early he can land big shots. And if he lands a clean enough shot to rock Benoit, that could be the fight over because Benoit might take a while to recover. He might shoot in on takedowns, but it might be a TKO because there was moments against Elijah Zaleski dos Santos where that fight should have been stopped. So Benoit, low confidence, another one of them that I'm telling you low confidence. Moving on to the main event, Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. Fun main event. I'm going with Sean O'Malley, unconfidently, but more confidently than the Benoit pick. I'm going to say like a 57% chance to win this fight. Marlon Vera has good power. He's got good cardio, and I think he has a tough style for Sean O'Malley because he's going to pressure forward, and he'll just eat strikes. He's extremely tough. But I think that Sean O'Malley's footwork is so good. I trust his movement. He switches stances very well. Marlon can switch stances too. But what gave Marlon Vera problems against Pedro Munhoz is that Pedro Munhoz was switching stances with Marlon Vera, taking away his head kick opportunity. And I think that Sean O'Malley will be able to do the same thing. Corey Sandhagen did the same thing as well. Marlon Vera had a really rough time with the range of Corey Sandhagen. Sean O'Malley is almost the same exact frame as Corey Sandhagen. He's got better power than Corey Sandhagen. Now Corey Sandhagen has better opportunities to mix up the fight, take it down to the ground, which he did against Marlon Vera. And Corey Sandhagen has better cardio as well. I like the fact that Sean O'Malley's going to be switching stances. I think he's going to work the low kicks very well. I thought he was winning up until that weird perennial nerve kick. I do think it was a fluke, yes, but Marlon Vera has a good chance to win this fight. He's got good cardio. He's more experienced for 5-rounders. And in the past, when Sean has been brought into a dogfight with Petr Yan, he was very tired at the end of 3 rounds. And if that fight goes on for another 2 rounds, Marlon Vera is going to be fine. He is. Now, I don't think Marlon Vera is going to get into that high output of a fight where they're getting rocked all over the place, where there's heavy grappling as well. That could be why Sean O'Malley was so tired at the end of that fight. But I think that Sean O'Malley is really locked in. The teep to the body is going to work. He's so good at ripping that teep to the body. Switching stances into a counter. His counters are good. Marlon will pressure, and if he keeps on the pressure, this could be a very interesting fight. I'm going to say like a 49-46 scorecard. I'm going to say 2 49-46s, 1 48-47. I think Marlon Vera is good. He looked pretty good against Pedro Munhoz. That jab was really working for him. I just think Sean O'Malley is going to be hard for him to find. But at times, Sean O'Malley's head movement and the way he kind of dips out of striking exchanges makes me feel like Marlon Vera can switch his stance through and land a head kick, but I think he's got to time a perfect strike. And Sean O'Malley, to me, showed that he was extremely durable against Petr Yan. Say what you want about that fight being a robbery. I was so impressed with Sean O'Malley in that performance against Petr Yan. He's a very technical striker. He's got a bunch of different tools. He's got a very big bag. Marlon Vera does as well. He's got good kicks, very unorthodox kicks. The axe kick, the front kick, low kicks, body kick, whatever. He's got all the kicks. But when it comes down to it, he starts out slow. I don't like that. I think Sean O'Malley will get the first 3 rounds, probably round 4, probably a strong round 5 for Marlon Vera. And Marlon Vera can hurt anybody, but when it comes down to it, I'm looking at Marlon Vera's best wins. Rob Font, I think, is a pretty good matchup for Marlon Vera because Rob Font is primarily a boxer, and Rob Font gets hurt, and when he gets hit, he is hurt by a lot of strikes. Deiveson Figueiredo recently just beat Rob Font. Figgy was a guy at flyweight, but Rob Font hasn't looked fantastic lately. He's now lost to Sandhagen as well. Outside of that, Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz actually could have arguably been a fairly interesting matchup when it comes to predicting this fight versus Sean O'Malley. He fights out of both stances very well, but he dips off at a very weird angle, and he doesn't have the same reach advantage as Sean O'Malley. I'm just kind of thinking Marlon Vera might be the guy to hinder the guys with great movement around the octagon, but even then, Corey Sandhagen was able to do the same thing. Sandhagen has a very good chin, and I don't think getting rocked by Jan means that you have a bad chin whatsoever. I trust Sean O'Malley's durability. I trust Marlon Vera's durability. I think this goes to a decision. If anyone finds a knockout, I'm thinking it will be Marlon Vera, but at the same time, he just had a very rough-looking weight cut, so I'm going to be going with Sean O'Malley. Maybe he works in takedowns because he has very high-level jiu-jitsu. Marlon's got the jiu-jitsu advantage on the feet. He's kind of got the power advantage. Maybe not pure pound-for-pound power, but I think if anyone's getting finished, I trust Marlon Vera's durability more than Sean O'Malley, so I think he has the more power and finishing potential in this matchup. That's a good way to put it. His cardio is probably better. He's worked with 5 rounds more, and I think maybe he's just going to try to set up the big strikes. But that's a dangerous game to play. He couldn't find it against Sandhagen. Sandhagen had a good chin, mixed in some takedowns. Maybe that's what you need to do. I don't mind it from Sean O'Malley, but I see Sean O'Malley taking this fight very, very serious. I'm watching interviews of him, and he seems to understand the technical aspect to the sport very, very well, and I think he's developed a very good game plan. With that being said, that's going to conclude this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.